the heaven and the earth, or it made itself, like the humanists say. The Humanist Manifesto, 1933, first plank was, humanists regard the universe as self-existing and not created. Now, the Humanist Manifesto was rewritten and revised in 1973. That's the Humanist Manifesto 2. That might be a good question. Humanist Manifesto, 1933. One of the signers of the Humanist Manifesto was a guy named John Dewey. John Dewey went to, I believe, Vermont and became the leader of the Teachers College. Under his direction, they produced many humanist leaders who went off and became leaders of major colleges and universities around the world, which then turned out thousands and thousands of humanist-believing teachers, which then went out and took over the school system. Education was infiltrated. To a large part of the blame can go on John Dewey, who was one of the signers of Humanist Manifesto, 1933. So we'll get into education more, but John Dewey and his philosophy of humanism, see, really boils down to this. If there is no God, then we better get together and figure out how to run this world, because it's up to us, right? So we end up with man's wisdom. Twice in the Bible, it says, every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Well, if there is no God, then how do you decide right from wrong? I often ask people, you know, if they believe in evolution, I say, well, how do you tell right from wrong? Think about it. What is sin, if evolution is true? There's no way to tell, is there? You don't have a standard, nothing to measure it against. But the humanist believe the universe is self-existing and not created. Well, this, of course, is rather difficult to believe, and the devil knew it would be hard to believe. So he had to think up some way to sound scientific that the world could make itself. And over the years, many theories have been proposed to explain how the world can make itself. There's been the nebular hypothesis, was real popular for a long time. The current one today is called the Big Bang Theory. How many have heard of the Big Bang Theory? That is the current way to explain how the universe got here without a creator, which of course really doesn't explain a thing, because they're just giving to some mythical name, Big Bang, they're giving it the same characters that God has. Big Bang created time, space, and matter. The Bible says God created time, space, and matter. So they're trying to accomplish the same thing, explain why we're here, and what, you know, who are we, why are we here, where are we going when we die, and those kind of things, without God. So the Big Bang would be their idea of the beginning. Here's a typical textbook used in Escambia County right here in Pensacola, Florida. It was, I don't know if it still is, but it's a 92 edition. So how was the universe born, and how will it end? Now look at that first question. Isn't that going back to the four basic questions of life? Who are we? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going when it ends, when it's all over, when we die? Every religion tries to answer that. So what they're doing here is introducing a religious concept in the schools to explain something that every human wants to know, some of the basic questions of life. Most astronomers believe, now look at that sentence. What does that say to the average freshman kid in high school? Well, most astronomers believe this, therefore it must be true. You see how it becomes truth by majority opinion. Dangerous thing to do, okay? In the first place, how do you prove most astronomers believe that? They don't offer any evidence for how they prove that. They just make the statement. I could say, everybody knows Fords are better than Chevys. Well, first place, probably not true, but if just because I make the statement and sound dogmatic when I make it, that doesn't make it true, does it? That's a judgment call. And this is a judgment call, but think of the impression this makes on a freshman who's taken this course, or an 8th grader in this case, general science. Most astronomers believe, well, what's the kid going to think? He's 13 years old. Well, I better believe it too then. Isn't that what's going to happen? Most astronomers believe that about 18 to 20 billion years ago, I'd like to stop right there and point out, this date changes all over the scale. I've seen some say the Big Bang was 8 billion years ago. It ranges, you see every number between 8 and 20 billion published. The fact is, it's long ago and far away. That's what they're trying to get across. Now, one of the things I do that is extremely effective when you're trying to talk to an evolutionist or a person who just doesn't know what they believe, even if I'm on the airplane, riding on the airplane, and sitting next to somebody, we get into a discussion, what do you do? I'm evangelist, I speak on dinosaurs in the Bible. Of course, they want to know, what? I get my napkin out or whatever, one of the barf bags on the airplane or something, and I draw these two lines. I have learned that if you just simply say 18 to 20 billion years ago, the kid reads that, the brain cannot absorb big numbers. Congress knows that. It takes advantage of it all the time. So by showing it on a graph, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. Something clicks between what you're seeing now and what you're hearing and what you're thinking. It all seems to fit together. So by graphing it out, on my napkin I'll make two lines, and I'll label one, 6,000 years ago, creation, 4,400 years ago, flood, 2,000 years ago, Jesus' life. Here we are today. By the way, I put the word today instead of a date because my chart would go out of date every year if I did that, right? Then I draw their graph, 20 billion years ago, Big Bang. And I often ask them the question, what exploded? And where did it come from? And the obvious question is, what was before that? But if you graph it out, all of a sudden they can see, it's dumb. But somehow the visual of being able to see what they believe on a timeline helps them to realize how dumb it is. Otherwise, they would just simply believe it because it's a mental gymnastic. And then 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down, which is what the textbooks teach. And 3 billion years ago, life evolved. Some say 3.8. Doesn't matter. The concept is still the same. Okay. And then this life had to, then you have to have macroevolution to get to various life forms. All 6 meanings of the word evolution can be found on the chart. Cosmic evolution, that'd be the Big Bang. Sometime in here you'd have to have chemical evolution, the chemicals would have to evolve. Then you'd have to have stellar evolution, the stars and planets have to evolve. They would teach the Earth was one of the last ones for planetary evolution right here. Then you have to get origin of life, organic evolution. Organic means living. And then you have to have macroevolution, changes between kinds. And finally, way at the end, you get a little bit of microevolution, variations within the kind. And from here on is all we've observed. All the rest of this is imagination. But by putting it on a graph, all of a sudden they start to see, wow, that is silly, isn't it? So the textbook tells the kids, 18 to 20 billion years ago, all the matter in the universe. By the way, the word universe is a question we should ask about. Universe comes from 2 Latin words. Uni means single, a unicycle. Verse means a spoken sentence. You have verse and prose. So a universe, the word itself means a single spoken sentence. We live in a single spoken sentence. God said, let there be. See, God spoke everything into existence. Now, everything I've ever built took effort on my part. Right? God spoke and created. I can't comprehend that for sure. That's called infinite power. You know, when God speaks, the waves lay down, the wind stops, the dead come to life. The rocks cry out. Everything in the universe obeys His voice, except us. We're the only ones He's having a little trouble with right now, but He will fix that someday too, when every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. But for now, He's having a little trouble with us. But He just spoke. Now that's a powerful thought, that we live in a universe. And I use it on the evolutionists all the time. You know, we live in a universe. Single spoken sentence. This textbook says all the matter in the universe was concentrated into one very dense, very hot region. Now stop right there. Where did the gravity come from to make it pull together? Very dense. Where did the heat come from? I mean, that's energy. They don't offer any explanation for that. They just say, boys and girls, here's how it happened. Now, they get mad at us for saying, in the beginning, God. Where did God come from? Okay, stop right there. Where did your matter come from? Where did your energy come from? Where did your gravity come from? They don't have any answers either, do they? It's just as much a religion as what we have. The point is, both are religious. The problem is, this religion is tax supported. That's why I offer in my ministry $250,000 for anybody with any real, hard, scientific evidence for evolution. I get lots of letters because of that offer on my website. Even the billboard we put up in St. Louis, right next to the St. Louis Museum, where they have the temple to Darwin, basically is what it is. People would say, oh no, of course we can't prove evolution. Can you prove creation? Ha ha ha. But that's exactly what I want them to say. I respond by saying, no, I cannot prove creation, and you cannot prove evolution. So my question is, since neither of us can prove what we believe, why do I have to pay for your religion to be taught in the schools? Shuts them up every time. Because that's a religion, folks. You believe 20 billion years ago, all the matter in the universe was in a very tiny dot, smaller than a period on a page? What would it take to put all the matter in the universe into a dot the size of a period? That'd take a lot of pressure, wouldn't it? This is fairy tale stuff. But somehow, remember, if you tell a big lie, people are more likely to believe it. When this Big Bang theory first got started, they said all the matter in the universe was in a sphere, I think they said 70,000 light years across. About 10 or 15 years later, they said, no, it was only 10,000 light years across. It keeps getting smaller and smaller. Now it's down to a dot. Guess what's coming after the dot? Nothing at all. What they're telling the kids here is, we have an explanation for where we came from, where are we going when we die, who are we, purpose of life. It's all right here, folks. They're offering the same thing. But now, it's godless. You're the result of an accident. There is no real purpose to life. Isn't that what this boils down to? We all got here by chance. Which basically means, hey, you might as well have fun, because there is nothing to life. You're nothing but stardust. This destroys kids' faith. Destroys everything about them. This textbook says, by the way, used in Escambia County, all the matter in the universe, all the matter and energy will once again be packed into a small area, after many billions of years, of course. This area may be no bigger than the period at the end of this sentence. Then another Big Bang will occur. The formation of a universe will begin all over again. A universe that periodically expands and then contracts back on itself is called a closed universe. In a closed universe, a Big Bang may occur once every 80 to 100 billion years. Talk about fairy tale stuff. What they're trying to do here is avoid the obvious question, where did the matter come from? Oh, well, it came from a previous Big Bang. You see how they're trying to do that? That's like some of the Hindu religions. Where did God come from? Well, he came from a previous God. Oh, where did that one come from? Well, he came from one before that, This is what the Mormon religion teaches. They teach, as I am, God once was. As God is, I shall be. It's one of their slogans. They teach God was a man like us, and if you're a good Mormon, you get to go be a God someday and start your own universe. So it avoids the ultimate question of how did it begin? Oh, it's just always been. It's always been. That's what they're trying to say here. 18 or 20 billion years ago, there's going to be a Big Bang. There was a Big Bang, and then in another 80 billion years, it's going to close up and start over again. This textbook says nothing really means nothing. This guy's real smart, right? He said not only matter and energy would disappear, but also space and time. However, physicists theorize that from this state of nothingness, the universe began in a gigantic explosion. Now here we have 16.5 billion years ago. I told you the number ranges all over the scale from 8 to 20, right? Remember, it started off as a big dot, 70,000 light years across. Now it's down to a dot. Now it's down to nothing.
How can nothing explode?
That's what I asked him. Excuse me? Nothing exploded, and here we are. Huh? Oh, that sounds good. Boy, if you tell a big lie, people are more likely to believe it. Do you understand how many millions of Americans believe that? Do you understand how many kids got taught that and believed it today? in our school system within 10 miles of where I'm standing? Think about it. Think about the ramifications of that. If a kid believes that, what's his image of himself? I'm nothing but dirt, nothing but chemicals. See, the Christian image, you're made in God's image. God loves you. He's got a purpose for you. You get a bunch of kids believing that, there's no telling what they're going to do. One of the two boys that shot everybody in Colorado, both of the boys were strong believers in evolution and followers of Charles Darwin's teachings. One of them had on his t-shirt, "Natural Selection," when they found him dead in the hallway. That's where it leads, folks. Hey, there's no God. Had a kid sat in the second row in a public school I spoke at in Pennsylvania. He said, "Mr. Hovind, I'm an atheist." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yep, there is no God." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Oh yeah, I'm sure." I said, "Well, tell me, son, if you're an atheist, how do you determine right from wrong?" He said, "Oh, that's easy. I decide if something's right or wrong." He said, "I'm the God of my own universe." I said, "Boy, I'm glad to hear about that, son, because I'm going to shoot you in 5 minutes." He said, "You can't do that." I said, "Oh yeah, you see, I'm the God of my own universe, and I decided it's fine for me to shoot you." What's wrong with that logic? Hey, if there is no God, the strongest survive, right? If I can take it away and I'm bigger than you, well, that's just your tough luck. Doesn't the lion do that with the zebra when he gets hungry? I'm taking your life away so I can eat. This type of thinking leads to the logical conclusion is there is no such thing as right and wrong, so might makes right. This kind of thinking leads to Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Pol Pot. We get into a lot more on that in video number 5 about how communism and Marxism and Nazism all ties in with evolution. It all starts, you have to get rid of God, which then, if there is no God, who's the next most likely candidate to be the king of the universe? Man. Humanism has to have evolution. That's why it's the humanist worldview. Deify mankind. Ye shall be as gods. Exactly what Lucifer said. And that's what's going on. That's how it ties together. This is Scientific American, which is a major science journal. I want you to look what this author said. The observable universe could have evolved, remember 6 meanings to that word, okay, from an infinitesimal region, which means a dot. It's then tempting to go one step further and speculate that the entire universe evolved from literally nothing. They put this in a science book and call it science. I'd call it a fairy tale and put it in the garbage. That doesn't explain anything. Science is what we know, what we can observe, what we can test. You can't know or observe or test that. That's wild speculation. He's guessing, folks. He doesn't know a thing. According to the Big Bang Theory, there's several different aspects to this. One of the Big Bang theories says that a bunch of nothings all over exploded and produced all the galaxies. So it happened all simultaneous. Oh, that explains it real good, you know. Another one says it was all in one dot and exploded and flew out in all directions. Another one, called the nebula hypothesis, says this cloud of dust all got together. Of course, obviously the question is, where did all this dust come from, right? But all this dirt in the universe got together in a little bitty tiny dot, and it kept getting drawn in tighter and tighter, and of course it began to spin. Now, the idea that the universe was spinning, which is what the textbooks teach, it spun faster. This is important, because if you go out and look at the planets or the sun or the earth or the stars, everything seems to be spinning. So where did this spinning motion come from? Doesn't it take energy to make something turn around? They either have to have each planet and star and sun and moon start spinning on its own somehow, which is quite a stretch, you know. Why is everything spinning? Or they have to say the initial object was spinning, and that's why all the fragments are spinning. If there was a Big Bang, you know, this initial object was spinning and exploded. They're faced with a pretty unpleasant choice. Neither one is logical, scientific, certainly not scientifically provable. They say this nebula began to spun, it spun faster and faster, and finally it exploded with the Big Bang. Of course, obvious questions are, where did the energy come from? Where did the matter come from? You know, who made this Big Bang anyway? And they don't try to offer any answer to that. Here's my two timelines. And again, I found this is absolutely the most effective way to get the point across. The evolutionists believe 20 billion years ago there was a Big Bang. The Christian believes 6,000 years ago God created. We believe in the beginning God. They believe in the beginning dirt. They're in the same boat we are, trying to answer how did it start. Now you have to watch. I do debates frequently, and it's in where was I last week? Knoxville, Tennessee. No, Coleman, Alabama the week before that. The article that came out in the paper, somebody faxed it to me. Oh, they blasted me up one side and down. They always wait till I'm gone, you know, and then blast me when I get out there to defend myself. After I left El Paso, Texas, back in October '99, the news article came out, and look at the title here. Religious and scientific leaders debate evolution. Now think for a second. What is the unspoken message here? What they're trying to imply is evolution belongs with religion. In other words, those who believe the Bible are religious and everybody else is scientific. Evolution is combined with science is what they're trying to say. Just by the title. Is it religious and scientific leaders debate evolution? Or is it creation religion and evolution religion? See, they're both religions. But the news media seems to always put the slant that, you know, if you believe the Bible, you're not scientific. The unspoken message, there's a lot of unspoken messages here. The Bible isn't part of science. Religion isn't part of science. Isn't that what they're trying to say? There's a difference between religion and science. They do this all the time, and you got to watch for it. Yes, sir?
Isn't it true that, like you said, most scientists, I mean, they lend their credibility, their scientific training to this idea of evolution, and in fact do stand up and debate with you saying, I'm a scientist, here's my credentials, and even though I'm promoting a theory, it's supported because I have these scientific credentials. So isn't it true that scientific leaders are supporting evolution? Why are they doing it?
Many scientists do also happen to believe in evolution. I could say some scientists drive Fords, some scientists drive Chevys. It doesn't mean the Ford has anything to do with science or the Chevy has something to do with science. The fact that he believes in evolution and also is a scientist does not mean there's a connection. And you got to be careful with that, okay? Everybody has a religious belief. Everybody has some kind of religious belief, okay? Even atheists. So the fact that a scientist happens to believe in evolution doesn't mean what he believes in is scientific. He's just mixing his religion with his science. Also, you have to watch who gets to decide who is a scientist. The word science means knowledge. So a person who is in the pursuit or study of knowledge is a scientist. Also, if you look at what happened in the Soviet Union, 10 years ago, if a teacher stood up in class and said, kids, I don't believe in communism. Capitalism is a much better system. What would happen to that teacher? Gulag, right? Siberia, huh? You like snow, huh? Yeah, we can fix that, right? If they survived. Then the teachers get up in school and say, all teachers believe in evolution. Or all teachers believe in communism, or whatever. They try to use this. See, anybody who wants to use majority opinion as an argument, as some kind of evidence, red flags ought to go up all over the place. Hold on just a minute. Majority opinion doesn't mean a thing. You go to headhunting society, the majority believes it's okay to cut somebody's head off and eat them. Well, it doesn't mean it's right. And so what they do, they try to silence the opposition. Rather than using logic, they use intimidation. And if a scientist does not go along with what everybody else believes, he's likely to lose his job. A couple days ago, Dan and I sat in the living room of Robert Gentry in Knoxville, Tennessee, who worked at Oak Ridge Laboratories. He's a scientist. He was one of the world's experts on the disposal of nuclear waste. But he wrote all sorts of articles. They were published in all sorts of major journals until they found out he's a creationist. right away, shut him off. Nobody will publish anything he writes anymore. Because if they do, then they're giving credibility to a creationist. And they want to be able to stand up and say, you creationists never publish in scientific journals. Well, yeah, we try, but you won't take our stuff. So that's like somebody standing up in the Soviet Union saying, well, hey, you know, capitalists, there aren't any capitalist teachers. Obviously, it can't be good. I mean, that doesn't take a freshman law student to figure that out. That's not good logic. But the technique that the media uses all the time is to try to divide religion from science. We'll get into more when we get into seminar part 4 of how Charles Lyell did that in his book, Principles of Geology, clear back in 1830. He's one of the guys, there are many people in the early 1800s who tried to drive a wedge between the Bible and science. The truth of the matter is, all of the branches of science were started by creationists. From 1600s, 1700s, all the major branches of science. I defy people to name me one advancement we have in scientific information because of the evolution theory. Is that why we have light bulbs, computers, plastics, space shuttles? What good has the evolution theory done? Come up with some during the course. Or if you watch our video, send me some. I would like to know, what good has the theory done? See, if a person believes there's a creator, then he's going to look for design and order in nature. Why did the creator do it that way? Oh, I bet there's a reason for that. Let me think what it is. One guy named Murray was reading his Bible one day, and it says in Psalm chapter 8, whatsoever passeth through the paths of the sea. He said, I wonder if there are paths in the sea. You know, when they sailed from Europe over to America, they took the shortest route. Murray spent a lifetime studying currents in the ocean and discovered because of ocean currents, they could save an awful lot of time. Instead of taking the short route across the middle, follow the current. It's longer, but you get there faster. It's like having a tailwind the whole time. He got that from the Bible. You know, the Bible says the life of the flesh is in the blood. People read that and say, wow. Up until, you know, a lot of people they take their blood out to help them get well. Clear up until 1860, they did bloodletting. And the Bible says the life of the flesh is in the blood. You can study there's a good book called Men of Science, Men of God, published by ICR carries it. I don't know if they publish it, but you can get icr.org and get it from them. A great book. Men of Science, Men of God, showing a lot of the godly scientists of the past. You ever heard of an MRI machine? Magnetic resonance imaging. The guy who invented that is a creationist. Loves God, believes the Bible. Is he a scientist? Oh, yeah. But see, to the average evolutionist, that guy would not qualify as a scientist because he believes in creation. So if they define the terms, who's a scientist, of course they will win the argument. That's how they do it. That's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to define the terms. And you've got to watch for that constantly. According to the creationist, 6,000 years ago God did it. According to the evolutionist, 20 billion years ago it just happened by itself. Now, these two timelines are not the same scale. On the top timeline here, every inch is 150 years, which is a long time. Abe Lincoln was not even president 1 inch ago. Columbus was running around trying to find this place right there. Vikings were going around beating up on everybody right there, right? If I was to try to show you what 20 billion years looks like at this scale, this chart would actually need to be 2,100 miles long from Pensacola to Portland, Oregon. 6,000 years does not even show up on that chart. I cannot draw a line thin enough to represent 6,000 years. So they're hiding behind long ago and far away. And somehow the brain can't accept that. The brain shuts off and says, wow, it must be true. And if you tell a big lie, they're more likely to believe it. That's exactly what's happened. Now, the basic questions that you need to ask are, where did the matter come from? Where did the laws come from? And where did the energy come from? I ask that to evolutionists all the time. Okay, you say there was a big bang. Please help me now. Where did the matter come from? What exploded? They don't know, of course. Secondly, where did the laws come from? Notice the universe is run by laws. The law of gravity, for instance. Why do objects attract each other? How does the Earth know my pen is here? If I drop it, how long will it take the Earth to figure out where it is and start pulling on it? Instantly, right? How did it know that? If I was somehow able to create something instantly from nothing, in the middle of the air, 100 miles above the Earth, how long would it take to begin falling? Where did this, what is gravity anyway? Give me a jar of it, would you please? Nobody has a clue what it is. We use it all the time, obviously, or you'd be sitting on the ceiling or something. But we don't, but nobody knows what it is, and we sure don't know why do we have this interesting force called gravity, or inertia, or centrifugal force. I mean, there are hundreds of forces in the universe. Where did they come from? Who made them? And why are they so precise? Thirdly, where did all this energy come from? Energy and matter are sort of interchangeable, but anytime you change from one to the other, you have a tremendous loss. So basically, where did the matter, where did the energy came from is sort of two sides of the same coin. But these are things the evolutionist simply doesn't know. I use the merry-go-round illustration in my seminar because it illustrates something called the law of conservation of angular momentum. If you put kids on the merry-go-round and get it spinning, as it goes faster and faster and faster, eventually, of course, the kids are going to go flying off the merry-go-round. Now, when the kid flies off, if the merry-go-round is going clockwise, the kid will be spinning clockwise as he exits. The reason for this is, if you can imagine the circle spinning, the outside has to move faster than the inside. It's got further to go in the same amount of time. And because of that, if it cracks up in a frictionless environment, now that's key, okay? This would only work in a frictionless environment. And that's what the Big Bang Theory says. All the matter was in one dot. Well, if all the matter is in one dot, then you have a totally frictionless environment. There's nothing for it to hit on the way out. So and they said it was spinning, and it exploded. Well, then, all of the fragments should be spinning the same way. But yet, they're not. Venus and Uranus, and possibly Pluto, they're not quite sure yet. Last I heard, they don't know for sure which way Pluto spins, but they think it may be spinning backwards to the other 6. Here we have 6 planets spinning one way, 2 and possibly 3 spinning the other way. And it's not just 2 planets together. Venus and Uranus have several planets in between. So why do 2 planets spin backwards? One atheist I debated said, well, maybe something hit Venus and spun it around backwards. I said, well, I suppose that's possible, but think about it for a minute. Do you realize what it would take to reverse the spin of a planet? Don't you think it would leave a dent at least? Where is the dent? Why is Venus nearly perfectly round and in a nearly perfectly circular orbit? Imagine a planet spinning and at the same time going around the sun. I want you to strike it so that it simply reverses the spin without knocking it into an elliptical orbit or knocking it out of orbit. Chances of that is 0. That ain't going to happen. Then not only do we have that problem, we have at least 6 of the 63 moons. I think there are more moons now that have been discovered. But at this time, there were, in 1989, they knew about 63 moons. 6 of them are spinning backwards. Some of them actually travel backwards around their planet. I believe, I'd have to look it up, but 2 planets, yeah, Saturn and Neptune, there it is right there, have moons orbiting both directions. Here you got a planet. Some of the moons are going this way. Other moons are going this way. Now, as these moons pass each other, there's going to be a slight gravitational tug. How long can a system like that last before it slowly disintegrates? They drift off into space. Certainly not forever. You'd agree with that, right? Is there some kind of time limit here? I don't know what it is, but I would think logic would say, yeah, there's an obvious time limit. It can't have happened for billions of years. So if somebody says the universe was created 6,000 years ago by an all-wise creator, well, then this is no problem. Stuff like this poses no problem for the creationist, but I think it does for those who want to say it's billions and billions of years old. The Bible says In 2 Peter 3 and in the book of Psalms, identical verse, part of the verse, says, the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. Might be a good bonus question if you can find out which psalm says the heavens shall pass away. So the New Testament writer here is quoting an Old Testament verse about the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with a fervent heat, and the earth shall be burned up. Jehovah's Witnesses teach the earth is going to last forever. Is that what the Bible teaches? No. Jesus said, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. So these guys teaching the earth is going to last forever simply don't read their Bible. They're wrong. All right? So this is the Big Bang in the Bible, the great noise. If somebody says, do you believe in the Big Bang? I say, oh, yes, I do, and you better get saved and get ready for it. The Big Bang is coming soon to a city near you. It's coming, folks. Get ready. Now, the Big Bang theory has some serious problems. First of all, it does not explain where the matter came from. It does not explain where the energy came from. It does not explain where the laws came from. It does not explain why we have what's called retrograde motion. Another problem with the Big Bang that they've really tried to avoid is the fact that if there were a Big Bang, the matter should be fairly evenly distributed throughout space. But it's not. It is clumpy. There's a whole bunch of stuff together called a galaxy, and then zillions of miles and nothing. How much space is there between here and Mars, for instance? What, about 45 million miles at the closest? Between here and the sun, 93 million miles, roughly. There's a whole lot of nothing, folks. Just plain nothing. Big Bang theory should have everything evenly distributed, and it just simply isn't that way. There's a great article in Creation magazine, December '99, about the physics behind the Big Bang, how it just can't be true. By the way, if you want to really get a fascinating magazine, it only comes once every 3 months, and it's $22 a year, so you get 4 copies. Well